Okay. It's a very energizing win for our team, for everybody. Again, extremely proud of the players, extremely banged up team, and they went out and fought against a team that really had UTEP's number for quite some time. It's kind of our nemesis, a team that we've been trying to chase, that's been to several straight bowl games, and to get an opportunity to get a win at home in front of the UTEP fans was outstanding. Offensively, some of the things we talked about prior to that game that we needed to do to win was protect the football. Again, for the third straight week with Mac as quarterback, we've had no interceptions. We did have one fumble in our side of the field. It was a missed handoff between Mac and L.A. Dowell. There was a defensive lineman that came free, and L.A. tried to veer away from it. He needs to just stay with that and just live with the loss on that. So there was one turnover in that game, but for the second half of the season, we've been at +2, so it's a trend we want to continue. We talked about stealing 2 possessions with ball control versus the #1 team in Conference USA at possessing the ball. That was their MO. That's how they won games, and that was our best chance to win this game. We controlled the time of possession with 33 minutes, 24 seconds, which now puts us at #1 in Conference USA, and that's the style of football that we want to play. We talked about getting more chunks and taking shots in this game and cashing in when the chunks were made. There was 3 chunk runs, all by Jeremiah LaFassa. I thought he ran outstanding in that game. And then we had 3 chunk passes, including a 58-yarder to Jaquan White, who had 2 touchdowns in the game. We talked about being close to 50% on third downs. We were 7 of 15, 47%. One of those was taken away by a penalty. We would have been over 50% again. Since Mac's been leading the charge at quarterback since midseason, we've been over 51% on third down, something that we really wanted to focus in on the second half of the season. We're 3 for 3 in red zone scoring chances, but again, one of those was a field goal, but it happened to be the game winner. If that was a normal drive, probably would have been played a little bit differently. We were running down the clock and wanted to kick a game-winning field goal. So very pleased with the third down production and red zone really over the last 3 weeks. As I had mentioned, Jaquan White had 4 receptions for 90 yards, long of 58 and 2 touchdowns. He's co-captain of the week for this upcoming game. And then Jeremiah LaFassa had 15 carries for 95 yards, 6.1 average, 1 touchdown. He finished the game hurt, kept battling, and he also is co-captain of the week for the Miners. We talked about staying ahead of the chains, no negative plays. We had our lowest amount of negative plays for the season, which again usually results in communication or guys getting beat one-on-one up front. We only had 3 negative losses. We talked about no sacks. Again, I think our offensive line is doing a great job of protecting the quarterbacks. We're #1 in Conference USA at this point in sacks allowed on the season. We'll face another challenge with Old Dominion as they have 21 sacks. We talked about no drops. Really, all the drops came on Autre. Autre had 3 drops in that game. I think Autre kind of offensively, we got to do something to spark him to get him out of what I would consider a little slump, and that's our job to get that done as coaches. We talked about having a run efficiency of 4.5 per carry. We were at 4.7. A lot of those were big runs on first and second downs, which put us in manageable third downs. That's the style of football that we need to play. We have one goal going into the night before the game, challenging the offense and the defense offensively to come out of the second half fast and begin with a score, and defense to come out of the second half fast and get a 3-and-out, and both the offense and defense accomplished that. The kids really bought into what we were trying to do to win this game. Defensively, we talked about stealing 2 possessions through the form of turnovers. We didn't get any in the game. They did lay the ball on the ground on a fumble one time, which was a vicious hit by Jimmy Musgrave. And then Michael Lewis had 2 interceptions that probably he wished he had them both back, because one probably would have been a pick 6 for him. He was in the clear, but we did not cash in on those opportunities. We talked about eliminating chunks. We're still a little high in that area. They had 3 chunk runs, 4 chunk passes, but 2 of those resulted in touchdowns. We got to clean that up moving forward. Efficiency on third downs was a little lower than what we expected. We expect to be at 35% or less. We were at 46%. They were 6 of 13. What I thought the defense did a great job of is stuffing the #2 rush offense in Conference USA. They had 2 excellent backs in #1 and #24. Those guys combined for 11 carries, 30 yards, 2.7 per carry. Overall, they rushed for only 96 yards. So our #1 goal was to stop the run. I thought the defense did a great job of doing that. We also talked about keeping number 6 in the pocket and rattling him. I thought we got good hits on him early. I think he's a very good veteran quarterback. I got a lot more respect for him after the game, after taking a shot, continuing and playing in the game. But all in all, I thought we did a good job. I thought Roy Robertson had his most productive day. He had a sack. He had a tackle for loss. He also had 4 tackles in that game, and Roy was playing with good tempo and motor. Special teams-wise, Jay Maddox was our Top Gun Player of the Week, which usually is reserved for L.A. Dowell. L.A., unfortunately, in that game, suffered a torn patella tendon in his knee and will be gone for the season, which is a little disheartening because you're looking at our best offensive player, our best defensive player in Cockrell, and our best special teams player in L.A. Dowell out for the season. So we have to make up in that area. But Jay Maddox was 5 touchbacks on kickoffs. He was 100% on PAT, and he kicked the game-winning field goal, done an outstanding job for us all season. It makes him Special Teams Player of the Week. Punt team, I think our punt coverage has been outstanding all year. Again, Luna, 45.4 average, and Tron Roberson had a great hustle play. They only had two returns for 4 yards, so I thought our coverage on the punt teams were outstanding. Punt return, it's not good when your guy fields a punt and he gets a roar from the crowd applauding. We put 2 on the ground. Both could have been disastrous. Luckily, we had guys hustling on those plays. Calvin Fisher jumped on one of the fumbles that Daniel Sear put on the ground, and then Nick Needham also jumped on one of the fumbles that Daniel Sear put on the ground. Again, we have to come up with a formula. My main goal as a punt returner is make sure we got the ball in our hands at the end of the play. I don't care about returns. I don't care about production after the catch. We have to field the catch first. I think you'll be looking at a combination of Warren Reddicks and Jaquan White moving forward. Kickoff cover makes everybody's job easier when Maddox just booms it out of the end zone. He had 5 touchbacks, but again, the coverage units have been outstanding this year, kickoff cover and punt cover, but our kickoff return, once again, not up to par. Again, I thought some of the front line blocking was better when we had a chance for a return, and then Autry put it on the ground and made probably a poor decision taking that thing out. And then the other time where we did have a return opportunity, we missed a front line block. So we have to mirror up the 2. They have to work in unison, and we need to get much better there. As I mentioned, Maddox was 100% on PAT field goal, and the thing that I was pleased with was PAT field goal block. That's our 3rd block kick of the year. And then also an errant snap that we stopped on an extra point, which makes 4. 2 things that, to me, always reflects the toughness of your team is kickoff cover unit and then your PAT field goal block after a touchdown, or your block units, because those are plays that sometimes guys take a play off. And the fact that we got 3 blocks on, and it was Nick Usher and Calvin Fisher combined on that block, and it was a big one. That would have put them ahead at that point. Instead, we're tied, and the offense took that drive and just took it down the field on a minor type drive. So the main thing with the team is we challenge the team to go out and play with energy and match Rice's physicality. Rice is always a physical team on a national stage, and I feel the kids really accomplished that. They went and fought their hearts out. They played with great energy. They played with great passion, and it was a very rewarding game for me as a head coach to watch, because to watch guys that nobody thinks have a chance, beat up, banged up, and they go out there and fight, that's what football is all about. Looking forward to this week. We got a long East Coast travel to Norfolk to play Old Dominion. They're in the exact same boat as we are, much like Rice was last week. So we need to gain head-to-head on them. They're 4-5, 2-3 in conference. Ourselves and them are both battling for the same bowl position. So it's a very important game for both teams. Offensively, they made a quarterback switch, and they went to number 10, Washington, who probably gives them a little bit more athleticism. They had their best offensive output this past weekend against UT San Antonio offensively, and I think he kind of generated a spark for them. I think they have one of the best running backs in Conference USA in Lowry. He's a sophomore. We played against him last year. I thought he was great against us last year. He's got close to 1,000 yards. He's averaging over 6 yards a carry, which is outstanding. He's got 8 touchdowns. He's averaging 120 yards rushing a game for them. So certainly a guy that we got to get multiple hats to. They have 2 big receivers, and Pascal's an experienced receiver, 6'2", 214, and Durhart, 6'3", 212 are their most experienced receivers, and their number 1 and number 2 leading receivers coming back. Both those guys have 3 touchdowns. And then they have an all-conference candidate and their right guard who's can blot out the sun. He's 6'6", 370 pounds. So they've got some tools on offense. They're a younger offense, not quite as experienced. They graduated some guys, but they're now starting to get it together here at the end of the season. Defensively, they're, again, a younger defense. They only got 2 senior starters. They switched one in the depth chart today, so they'll have 3 senior starters. But it all starts for them with T.J. Ricks, their linebacker. He's their leading tackler with 81. 3 tackles for loss, sack, 5 pass breakups, forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. He's their playmaker on defense. He's all over the field. They got a very good, strong safety that played against us last year, Melton Fisher, good-sized guy who's second on their team in tackles. And then they've got 2 guys that are making plays as far as sacks and tackles for loss is something that they struggled with last year. This year they're getting it. They got 21 sacks, which puts them 3rd in Conference USA. And if I'm pronouncing this right, Zamini's, Sam linebacker, he leads their team in sacks, 5, tackles for losses, 7.5. And then Rotimi, defensive end, second on the team in sacks and tackles for loss. So they got guys that can't get to the passer. And then they got a freshman corner that's playing well for them, Addison, number 11, who leads them in pass breakups and pass defended. Special teams, their punter is averaging 40.7, which puts them 11th in Conference USA. Punt return, they haven't had many return opportunities, or 13th in Conference USA. Kickoff coverage, unique. It'll be something different than you've ever seen. They don't kick it deep. These guys either squib it, sky it, or onsides kick it. They try to really hit your front line defenders. They're trying, it looks like dodgeball. They're trying to bounce it off their guys, and they're trying to gain possessions. And they've been successful doing it. So that'll be a unique thing for us to prepare for and something to look for in the game, because it's hard to catch those balls. And then kickoff return, one of their receivers, Little, 5'9", 176 sophomore, who's been a productive receiver for him, also runs the ball for him. He's a kind of an all-everything player for them. He's their punt returner and kick returner. Much like last week, they've used different kickers, all with mixed results. So defensively, again, we got to try to do a good job of keeping them out of the red zone and keeping them in field goal range and putting it on the kicker rather than red zone scores. So we're looking probably at a team that we could look in the mirror and see each other record-wise, accomplished-wise, and it's going to be a battle. It is an advantage for them playing at home. They get great crowds there at Old Dominion. They've established a good tradition there. I think Coach Bobby Wilder is an outstanding coach. Their team is very minimally penalized. In fact, they're number 1 in Conference USA in penalties. And then they've probably struggled with some of the same things that we have, turnovers. They're -4 on the year, exactly where we're at. So you're looking at 2, 4, and 5 teams that still have bowl aspirations playing against each other. I think it should be a very competitive game. Any questions? Yeah, but he finished that game hurt, and his availability is up in the air. We'll probably have to ease off of him in practice a little bit. He re-injured his knee a little bit. So it's called running back by desperation right now. We're down to our 4-string tailback. And I'm actually going to use Kavika Johnson some as a tailback this week. He's fresh. He's in red shirt, and that's T.K. Powell. But that's where we're at right now. You know, Atre's really been stoved up this year, and I'm not going to put a guy back there at running back that's stoved up if it's not going to benefit us. Now, Warren Reddix has given us some juice in the backfield, and he'll continue to get carries. I like what Warren Reddix brings to the table as a receiver, as a running back, as a football player, and he's also got some return ability. So Warren's been very good for us this year, and he'll get opportunities as well.
You talked about Rice being your most rewarding as a coach. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, you know, it's a team that we're trying to chase. It's a team that's been to several straight bowl games. It's a team that we're trying to model our program after. They're disciplined. They're smart. They do a great job on and off the field with their players. They're classy. You know, my hat goes off to Coach Bailiff. When L.A. Dow was on the sidelines hurt, every single one of their players came over and gave him words of encouragement. That's what I want our program to be, a class act. You know, not out there acting like idiots, out there acting, you know, like fools. I want guys that will go out there and got class, and that's what Rice has. So to beat a team like that at our place, it was rewarding. To beat a team like that, as banged up as we are, you know, again, I don't have people don't have any idea how banged up we are. To see those guys go out there and fight and beat a team under those circumstances on national TV, yeah, hell yeah, it was rewarding to me. Yeah, we challenged those guys last week, you know, and I really think we got two excellent defensive ends. They've kind of been taking turns, being productive, and I think they were both productive at the same time in this game. Gino Breslin gives you everything he's got every single game. I think Sky Logan's given us some juice in there. The guy's got 4 sacks, and he didn't play in the first 4 games. He's only a sophomore. He's got a great future ahead of him. What really stood out this week was the linebacker production. Those guys had over 20 tackles combined, and that's the first time that's happened since we've been here as a staff. If you get linebacker production out of a nickel 4-2-5 defense, you're going to have success, and that's why we were so successful stopping the run. Alvin Jones was all over the place, but that's every week. Yeah, you know, you got to prepare for sky kicks, you know, possible, fielding those, possible fair catches. You got to prepare for squib kicks. You know, I kind of likened it to dodgeball because if it hits you, boom, that's a live ball. And then, they're going to spray it all over the place, and they'll surprise onsides at any point, ahead, behind. So we got to be really on our screws as far as kickoff return. It's going to be different.
You talk about playing on the road. You talk about you took this season playing on the road, especially in the Eastern time zone. This week, you talk about maybe getting to a faster start.
Well, you know, it's always tough to play on the road. I don't care who you are or who you're playing, especially when you do play in different time zones. You know, I recall coaching in the NFL when you had a West Coast team come to the East Coast. You know, it's 10:30 in the morning for those guys, and they always have a difficult chore. Same thing for when you went west. It was always difficult anytime you switch time zones. So we're going to approach the week. I'm going to try to freshen up their legs a little bit in practice. We need it. We're banged up. But ultimately, you just got to go out there and you got to compete, and you got to take the crowd out of the game with your performance. I'm hoping. He got it stoved up at the end of the week last week. Couldn't play in this game, and we were down to our third guard, Anthony Cowles, who had never taken a snap in a game, and I thought he went in there and did an admirable job at right guard with no practice. So that's kind of been the story of our season. We were down to our third right guard, our second right tackle, basically our fourth tailback. Our fifth wide receiver was in there taking snaps at tailback. That's where we're at, and to have those kids go out there and compete the way they did and get a win, hats off to them.
What does Powell show you in practice that he can compete in this level?
You know, he's really showed it since camp. You know, he broke a lot of runs in camp. He is a walk-on, but if we brought that kid in as a scholarship player, I'd be very pleased. He's been a pleasant surprise since camp. He worked his tail off on scout team, and when we got a little banged up the last few weeks, we've been practicing up there with the varsity and taking him off the scout team just to kind of get him prepared in case of an emergency. Well, guess what? We're at emergency time, and we're going to need his help. He was up for it. You know, sometimes this late in the year, it's hard to talk to a kid about burning his red shirt. But what you have to explain to him is that red shirt will always be in your pocket if you were to get injured down the line, much like Aaron Jones. You know, Aaron Jones utilized this year as a red shirt. Same with Devin Cockrell, Luke Elsner, Terry Janelle. All those guys use this year as a red shirt. They get that year back. So he can help us win games. He's going to be unredshirted.
Looking around the same time, part of the year last year, you guys were a lot of these playoff type games. Do you take anything from your leaders and yourself as well as mentally prepare you guys for this type of empowerment game for you guys?
Well, you know, you find out about your leadership. You know, you find out about your competitors that are seniors. You know, last year I found out a lot about that group, that we had outstanding senior leadership, and it seemed the more our backs were against the wall, the harder they fought. I think I'm finding the same thing out about this team. Their backs were certainly against the wall. We were 2-4 and just got our asses whipped at FIU, coming off a bye week, and these kids have done nothing but work and fight. So I'm starting to find out about this team's leadership and this team's character, much like we did last year. Anybody got anything else? Thank you.